Hey, welcome back to the show. This is Steve with Life After Addiction Indictment. And I sure appreciate you taking the time to listen to the podcast and hope that there's things that you're hearing that add value to you or that add value to somebody in your life that maybe is dealing with some problems with addiction. We're living in a time where there's a lot of people struggling, and, addiction and abuse and alcoholism, et cetera, is just getting to be, out of hand. As I talked about in a previous episode, where is the outcry? Where are the people, speaking up about the 100,000 plus fentanyl overdoses last year? It's just a shame to me that we have something like that going on, and it's not even talked about, very rarely. It's something that frankly angers me, because a huge part of that problem and a huge part of what I believe a lot of the stressors and things that trigger a lot of the abuse that takes place is from the stress created in the environment that we live in. And, that's a very, very deep topic that, there's so much to, that, it's not that you can blame those things, because really when we take control of our lives, we own everything that we have in our life. And that means if life sucks and the economy is going to hell and we have a border that's wide open and fentanyl is coming in along with a lot of other things and problems that are affecting our society, the hyperinflation and all the different things that can cause a great deal of anxiety and stress in one's life, that does not excuse the abuse or addiction, or domestic abuse or whatever the issue is that we struggle with as human beings. But in order to, fight against the stresses and the anxiety that we may have, we've got to have some tools and some knowledge of things that we can do to help us overcome and deal with those things. It took me a long, long time to really dig in and understand what my main triggers were. There was a couple of them, and it took years for me to see that, not only to see it, but then to, admit it and own it, and realize that regardless of, whatever the issues are in our lives, we have the ability to choose. And so the thing that really shifted things in my life, was later in my life. I'm 54 now, and I went to federal prison when I was about 42, I believe. Even though I was sober for years prior to that, it really rocked my world, and I was really struggling until I was willing to own everything and focus on the power of my thoughts and my mind. That's when things shifted. I've talked about in the past of a lady who wrote me letters that was a friend of my mother's, and how she challenged me to think of things I was grateful for every night, 3 things for that day. And then that really made a difference, and it made a huge difference. And I would suggest, if you're struggling and depressed, whether you're sober now, using, doesn't matter, start doing this, because this is something that can really help shift things. If you'll focus on gratitude, which takes us out of selfishness, takes us out of victim mentality and stance, and starts to allow us to feel different. Because when you're focused on and thinking of the things that you are grateful for, even if you're not into it, you're just going through the motions to begin with. If you do it, things will shift, even if you don't feel it for a while. Because that's just the way the universe works. As long as you're sincere about it, you're focused and looking at things truly that day that you can be grateful for. It could be as simple as the sun is out and it's a beautiful, warm day. It could be as simple as your gratitude is for a warm shower. If that's something that you have. Not everybody does, One other thing that I always try to think about too is no matter how crappy it is in my life, no matter what's going on and how crazy bad I believe it is, if you'll just realize that there's always people that have it a lot worse. See, it's the stories we create in our mind that take us down the paths to continue to take us into those darker places. Until we realize that that's happening and that we have the power to change our thoughts and to realize they are just stories, that they frankly aren't true or false. They're just stories. It's the same with our beliefs. We all come from so many different walks of life and backgrounds that the beliefs we have are formed by the experiences we have. I've grown up in Utah. It's a very conservative, place typically. And so, of course, I have conservative leanings. And, as I've looked at things over my life, especially even politics, I'm not going to get into that because that's something I get into very deeply, particularly on my other podcast, Truth Talk with Steve. But it's something I look at and I see the way certain so-called leaders, so-called people that we've so-called elected, supposedly think by the things they talk about and want to put in place. It just boggles my mind. And so I just have to realize that they came from a totally different experience in life. It doesn't mean they're wrong and I'm right. However, I think there's definitely factors where we both experience that at times where I'm wrong and that, their beliefs on certain things are right and vice versa. But once again, I'm not going to go too deep into that because I think this whole right or left thing is a bunch of bullshit anyway. It's all just created to divide us. We're all very similar, a lot more similar than we think, Anyways, I've got other things I wanted to talk about. It's mainly to focus on our beliefs and our thoughts and our mindset. Then I'll wrap up with some information about entrepreneurship that I've learned and some things that I think will be beneficial because, this podcast was created to help people go through and deal with things exactly that I experienced. And what I mean by that is how to reclaim your life through entrepreneurship if your past is still getting in the way of your future. You can reclaim your life. Entrepreneurship, especially this day and age where the world is going to hell currently, it can be difficult. Entrepreneurship is a tough journey. I've got a business right now that is a bugger that, we've flipped it around and it's growing now and doing well, but it's kicked my butt the last year, and it's tough. And the only way that you'll make it is to stick to it and to believe it. Because just like, as I talked about gratitude, if you're doing that every night and thinking of those three things, and if you're not totally into it, but you're doing it, literally just going through the motions, as long as the things you think about are sincere things, they may be trivial, but still there's something you can be grateful for. Like I mentioned, if it is just that warm shower, because there are some people that definitely don't have the option for a warm shower. There's many that probably don't even have an option other than to get in a lake or a river. So just by doing that, like I said, even if you're not fully into it, but the fact that you will do it will shift the energy, even if you're not aware of it, and it'll slowly build. And so as we pay attention to the things that we think about, that also has a huge impact on the things that we have in our life. I believe it was, I want to say Dale Carnegie, but for some reason, I don't think that was him. But regardless of who it was, he stated, we become what we think about all day long. And the way I look at that is we get in our lives what we're focused on. So if you're focused on how crappy things are and life sucks and everything's so expensive and I don't know how I'm going to make it, number one, that's a victim stance. Number two, how are you ever going to change things if that's what you're thinking of and the energy that you're putting out? So we have to realize first, just like with addiction, we cannot get sober until we're willing to admit we have a problem. So if you're still in denial and don't think you have a problem or think you have justification for your use of drugs or alcohol, which I had that for a long time because I have Crohn's disease and a bad back, and so I could justify it. That's what kept me using after I had an experience that I literally was scared straight because I thought I was dying. I thought I saw literally my body in my car when my body went numb from my neck down one day, driving to meet a buddy at a golf course. I've talked about that on past episodes. Well, that scared me straight, but then going to my doctor, talk to him, and then getting referred to an internist who introduced me to OxyContin when I first hit the marketplace. I then went from scared straight, I'm done with this, to, oh, the light just went back on. I have Crohn's disease. And what the doctor said, mild depression. And so I'm going to use still because he's prescribing me that because he says I'm depressed. And that shifted my mind. So it's important what we put in our minds. So it's imperative that if you're in a place where you're not happy, you're not fulfilled, or getting out of life what you want, let me first start by telling you that you deserve it. You deserve to have everything that life has to offer. We all do. So you've got to believe that first. See, I don't believe in saying I'm a recovered addict or a recovering addict. I'm not an addict. I'm not a recovered addict. I'm not a recovering addict. I am Steve Cloward. And frankly, I'm a child of God. That's it. And I have value and I have worth because I don't believe holding on to that label that I'm in recovery. Because the subconscious mind's a powerful thing. And I'm not going to have that thought continue to be in there to continue to process through my brain every single day with the 70, 80 other 1,000 thoughts. Because that just could eventually trigger me to buy into the fact that relapse is part of recovery. And I don't buy that. I'm not saying it's easy, it's a bitch. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, and I'm not saying that something couldn't happen. But I focus on the things that I believe will keep my mind in a place where it won't happen. Because I don't allow myself to go down those places, you know, if I'm having a bad day and kind of depressed, because those days happen 100%, I'm not lying. But I'm okay with them now. I accept them and say everybody has them instead of sitting there and stewing in it and building on the thoughts and beliefs I have of how bad it is, what it is that's got me depressed, et cetera, et cetera. Because you're never going to win if you focus and do that. So it's imperative that you do what I call a conscious self-creation statement. And I've talked about that before. So if you're struggling, the first thing you need to do is realize what's going on, the self-talk, what's going on in your mind. And you need to start every single morning either with prayer or also focusing on gratitude. So if you focus on gratitude before you go to sleep and also in the morning, it's a winning formula. Just those two things will make a big difference. But take the next step and create that statement. You know, I am a winner. I am successful. I have an abundant life. I'm a money magnet. I'm powerful. I create myself powerfully every day. I have a beautiful and happy wife and a great marriage, and she is my best friend. Whatever the things are that you want to say that you have or that you are, That doesn't mean you have to be that or have those things. But what you're doing is constantly putting that in your mind. And whether you believe it or not, we are all just energy. This entire world, this universe, that's all it is. And if you will understand that, you'll start to understand that everything is based off of vibration and frequency. So you can continue to vibrate at a low level and put out negative energy, or you can focus on the positive things, even when it's rough, and it ain't easy at times. Let me tell you, I've had some couple of rough days actually this past 2 weeks. But it's how we respond to the things in our life that makes the difference. And until we realize what's just happening that we allow to happen, we can't take control. So it's about taking control, because all we can do in our life is control what we can control, because no one's coming to save us. And just even that thought, based on where you're at emotionally when it's rough, can really create some anxiety, because I've been there too. So focus on that and say it every single day to start your day. Like I've said in past episodes, I started saying that as soon as I jumped into the shower. It just automatically kept happening. And no BS. Almost everything that I stated in my conscious self-creation statement has manifested in my life. All but 2 things over the last 5 years. So you can do that. So the mind is the key to unlock your life. So you must work on it. Why do we take better care oftentimes of our vehicles than we do ourselves? We must look inward. We must put the positive thoughts and positive things, whether it's what we read, what we consume in our lives, the people we're around. It matters. It is very tough at times to do that inventory of who you're spending time with and what you have in your life. And is it the things that you want? Is the energy with the people that you spend the most time with the energy that's good and positive? Doesn't mean they're bad people. It's, do you align and spend time with people who have similar aspirations, attitudes, character, beliefs as you? Or are they people that actually suck you down? It's like that, when you have the crabs in a big old pot and it's slowly warming up and some of them are starting to crawl out. You've got those ones that always just grab and pull them back in. You do not want to have those type of people in your life. See, we have the ability to create anything that we want, but we can't create it if we don't know how. Like I said, it starts with the mind. It starts with, you can reprogram, rewire your mind. But you have to intentionally put things in it every single day to do so. Now, let me wrap up this area of the podcast focused on addiction, and then I'll shift into things on entrepreneurship. But if you're struggling with addiction, the first thing you've got to figure out is, what is it? What's the trigger? Because until you can figure out what's triggering you to want to numb yourself out, it's going to be very hard to get sober, even if you want to, because you have to fix the thing and deal with the thing that is the trigger that you're trying to escape from. And so you have to really be honest with yourself. Now, if you're a family member or a spouse of somebody that's using, that can be very difficult because you could be enabling, You could be in a situation where you're, sick and tired of it. So you're, responding in ways that only fuel the addiction more. That's very tough. And I'm not going to get into, how to advise you on that today. I do have some thoughts on that and stuff, but first of all, you need to have empathy. Because I'm telling you, addiction is a damn disease. And it's a bitch of a disease. I hated it. There was days I literally cried driving to my office because I was so damn sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I wanted to get out, but I knew how brutal it was and how tough to go through detoxing. But I also knew from the experience, until I figured out what the issue was and why I was doing it, I was going to struggle. So if you're ready to take the next step and let go, you need to identify differently, and you need to figure out what it is that is really that trigger, that underlying reason for you to take drugs, for you to overeat, for you to go drink, for you to, be a sex addict, whatever it is. You've got to find the underlying reason. Now, if you want to take control of your life, you're sober, you're frustrated, been laid off, and you just have had dreams, but you just haven't known what to do, or haven't had the belief or the confidence. That's a big one. Because I think oftentimes a large majority of us won't admit it, but we definitely don't have the confidence that most other people believe we probably do. And, I'm going to hit on this really quick. There's a show I've been watching with my wife every week. It's called Beyond the Edge. And it's, celebrities, Ray Lewis, Mike Singletary, Craig Morgan, country singer, Colton, I can't remember his last name, but he was on The Bachelor and then Bachelorette, and he came out as gay a year or so ago. You've got Paulina, the supermodel. You've got Jody, I think it's Sweeten. There was two other gals, I want to say Laurel, but it was like Luana, country singer. And then a really nice gal who's like on the Housewives of New York or something like that. But anyway, bottom line is they're living in the jungle in Panama. And all walks of life. And now here they are, no comforts of home, nothing. And to see the vulnerability and the love and how much we have in common, regardless of where we come from, is something. I told my wife last week, watching it, like, this is one of the best shows I've seen in years and years, because of the way it makes me feel, because of the transformation I see in these people. Because when you're in a situation like that, where you're vulnerable and open, you can't fake it. And so the confidence we might think that a supermodel or a Ray Lewis or a Mike Singletary might have, and then to realize when everything's stripped away from us, we all are insecure. So confidence is something we must work on as well. And success builds confidence. I'm not talking success financially or in business. That certainly is one of them, but that's not what I mean. That's not everything. It's just confidence by doing the things you say you would do, living your word to yourself, doing that gratitude statement, doing the little things compounds. And then those little things continue to build confidence. So several things from a mindset that you must focus on if you want to be a successful entrepreneur. And these all came from, I believe it was Robert Kiyosaki. If you haven't, read the books, he's got some great ones. The main one that he started with was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I'll give you some ideas of a poor mentality. versus a rich man's mentality. And this is all focused on mindset, because a poor mentality would be success is unimportant. They blame others, they spend money. That's something I fight at times. And they refuse to learn. And as this podcast talks about a lot, we focus on the past. See, the past is history. There's no need to focus on it. We think small. The poor mentality thinks small. Fears change. Definitely criticizes. That's an insecurity. And so when we're criticizing, we're usually projecting. But that's a poor mentality. See, I love to see people win. I love to see success. Poor mentality will waste time, create problems, being a victim and creating problems and drama. And those are poor mentalities. When we're talking about the rich man's mentality, you believe that success is an obligation. I feel obligated to be successful so I can take care of my family, so I can give back to my community or to whatever things that I choose. You have to be responsible. The rich man's mentality will invest their money. They won't waste their time, and they actually embrace change. And that's not easy to do, because we don't like change because we're comfortable. The rich mentality pushes themselves to do things that are out of their comfort zone. They're goal-driven, and definitely the rich mentality is a problem solver. That's one thing that I've always said I'm good at, and it's something I have a pet peeve that I can't stand, when someone comes to me with problems but doesn't offer the solution that they've, come up with too. The last thing I want to hear is someone just coming to me with their problems. That drives me absolutely crazy. But the rich mentality is also like relationships are network driven. They have big dreams, big thinker. And, you focus on the future, meaning there's a lot to that, but that is like, what is it you're looking to create? What are the goals you have? That's the difference. And the difference in mentality makes a huge difference in our lives and how the things we get, but also how we feel, which is what affects what we attract, whether that's the people around us. If you're focused on negative things, you're going to, if you think you're accident prone, you got to really look at that. Are you accident prone? Or are you created your life so that you have lots of accidents because you believe that? You got to ask yourself, you got to be honest. And the last thing I'm going to go over real quick for those that haven't been entrepreneurs, but do have dreams of being one, or already have thought of what they would do if they would just, believed in themselves enough. These are things that I've written down. You must have a plan. So beginner mistakes are you don't have a plan. And you spend too much money first. Because when you start out, you need to be as frugal as possible. One thing that I know that I struggled with in every business I've created, I often focus always on, I have to get this done and that done, meaning, whether it's the business cards and the website or the sign on the door, whatever it is, all those things that have no relation to you making money right away. You make money right away by making sales, getting customers. So another one is you expect the results to be too fast. I struggled with that big time after I got out of prison. Struggled with it for seriously 8 years out of the last 12. And that's where I was letting my past get in the way of my future, because I forgot how hard I worked and the years I went through to learn things that I learned that created the success that I had and that I have today. That was a tough pill because I expected it to just happen overnight when it took years before. But also a big mistake as an entrepreneur, you can hire too soon. Now there's a double-edged kind of sword there, because you get to a point too where you have to realize that the things you're doing, that if you bit the bullet and even spent the money for that person that could take away all those things that keep you grinding in your business, you have to be able to figure out when that time is, because that's holding you back. And if you just take that leap of faith, eventually you have to know that it's the time that if you commit to that salary for that person to be that assistant or whatever it is, you've got to make that decision and know it's right. But doing it too soon can really be tough. Oftentimes we get stuck copying others. I've caught myself doing that still occasionally when it comes to certain things marketing wise, And if another big mistake is people that get in business just because they want to, or they think it's the way to go and it gives you the freedom. As an entrepreneur, you lose a lot of freedoms. You can gain a whole hell of a lot too. And time frame is what I'm an entrepreneur for. I want the time. I want to be able to generate a business or build a business that I can replace myself and continues to move forward and generate the revenue when I'm off helping somebody or on vacation, spending time with my family. So that's truly all that matters. The money and the stuff means nothing. But if you're not passionate enough about your business, that can be a huge problem. Like I said, another huge mistake is solopreneurship's tough. So doing it alone could be a huge mistake. Now, that doesn't mean you have to have a partner or someone involved. You have to be willing to reach out to other people. You have to be willing to ask, and talk to people who have what you have. The big one that people make, and this is the one I was talking about when I said I'm focused on the business cards and the website, doing all the little things of the office, et cetera, et cetera. Thinking busy is productive. That is a huge mistake by entrepreneurs, beginning entrepreneurs. So write these down. If you're looking to get in business and take control of your life so that you don't have to answer to somebody, and you have a dream and something you really wanted to do that you're passionate about, ask somebody that's got what you've got. That you want, for some guidance, for some help. Reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. I don't have all the answers. That's the one thing I definitely know, and I will never have all of them. But I know I'm always reading, I'm always learning, I'm always asking questions. I'm always trying to build my network. Because whether you believe it or not, your net worth is also a big reflection on your network. So introducing yourself to somebody new, that's positive that you could have, in your life, or that you just want to go to lunch with to pick their brain. Because most people are willing to help if you just ask. Well, I hope this has been valuable for you. Mindset, like I say, is where it all starts. Mindset is the key to unlock your life, no matter where you are at in life. And no matter where you're at, there is somebody that has a whole hell of a lot worse. Hope you have a fantastic day. Keep the faith and expect to win. Take care.